Hello and welcome to another edition of Exclusive Interview, coming to you live from the studios of 84 TV Radio Abuja, Nigeria. My name is Stanley Bentu. Now here's what we're talking about today. It's so difficult for you to pick up a newspaper on any given day in Nigeria without reading a horrible story about people getting killed. The most recent, 50 in Kaduna State. The governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, has said that he will not negotiate with terrorists, even as he apologized to the people of the state for not being able to keep them safe. But exactly what is the best policy in order to deal with violent crimes in Nigeria? That's what we want to find out on this edition of Exclusive Interview. But first, let us have a look at this report.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari said how sad he was over an attack in Kaduna State that killed several people and left many injured. This is a story that has become all too common for the oil-rich nation. About 50 people were reported killed in the attacks in 3 local government areas of the northwestern state. Many believe that these bandits are unleashing their fury and frustration on innocent people because of the ongoing military and police offensive against them in the Benin, Gwari and Kaduru forest. This reaction of the country's president comes in as Governor Nasir Ahmad El-Rufai of Kaduna State promised to root out bandits from the state, saying he would not negotiate with terrorists. With the increasing spate of killings going on in the country, it seems Nigeria's security has collapsed with no tangible solution to solve the insecurity issues currently bedeviling the country. Nowadays, it is very hard to keep up with the mindless killings going on around the country. It's clear Nigeria is going through one of the greatest security challenges since its independence in 1960. On today's edition of the program, we feature someone who has had years of experience in handling such situations. Brigadier General SALEH BALA is a military strategist who has served as advisor to the Ministry of Interior.
Well, right now we want to get to the bottom of some of the challenges that we've been having in Nigeria with violent crime. And to do that, we're bringing in Brigadier General SALEH BALA, who joins me right now. General, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Well, the first thing I want to talk about is banditry and kidnapping. Now, just recently we heard that 50 people were killed in Kaduna State, and the governor of that state, Governor El-Rufai, had said that he will not negotiate with terrorists, which is a great departure from his posture several years ago when he said that he had actually paid some money for some of the herdsmen that were coming in to carry out attacks within Nigeria. We've also heard of a different approach, this time by the governor of Katsina State. Now, Governor Masari had visited the camps of known terrorists and even taken pictures with them and has decided to negotiate. So, as a security expert, what should be the standard approach? Or should we negotiate? Should we take a non-negotiation posture? What should we do? Because our policies seem to be a little bit all over the place.
Well, thank you. It's a mouthful of a question. But what is consistent in all is if we start from the way up top, the outcomes we are seeing today in the violent crimes, you will appreciate, are mostly rural crimes of rural origin, and it goes way back to the rural neglect that has always been since independence. There's been an elite rise to which the mentality for development is focused on the urban areas. And there is huge urban neglect. Not urban neglect in terms of development in aspects of human security and even physical security. So within the context, within the domain of defense and security, you hear of ungoverned spaces, which means there are huge swaths of area where there isn't government presence, there aren't security presence. So on both sides of physical security and development, these are huge places that are neglected. And when you do that to human beings, they go back to the Hobbesian world.
Meaning?
Where it is chaotic, it is brutal, it is dangerous, and people fall back to their human instinct to find survival. And this is what is manifesting in the violent crimes that we have now. If, for an example, you take the case of the herdsmen as one symbol to discuss, there has been over generations, even before we were born, of the history of cattle rustling. And it is only the state that can provide security to the average herdsman to protect his flock. When over time that was not happening, the herdsmen themselves started to adopt ways to protect themselves from otherwise armed bandits who were raiding their own cattle. Further still, as time evolved, they learned that with their guns, they actually do not have to herd cattle all the way from Sokoto to Lagos. And by seizing us, the elites, the urban elites, they could as well make sums which could otherwise could have turned up in selling 100 herds that would have been driven across Africa for a year, across Nigeria for a whole year. They could make such by kidnapping 1 or 2 people. So it's a whole huge conversation, which within the space of time on this program, one cannot deal with completely. But also,
how do we begin to respond to some of these threats?
Yeah, yes, that's where I'm going to. If you do not capacitate your institutions of national cohesion, which are the defense and security forces, if they are not up to capacity and capability, and also they are not deployed to these otherwise ungoverned areas, and the rural areas are not developed with institutions of human security, education, medical care, markets, power, people are definitely going to find those kind of swaths of areas to run their criminal activities.
So General, why don't we go to the fundamentals of these challenges? Because I think 2 years ago,
yes,
I had the opportunity to travel. I went to Benue State after the killings in January of 2 years back.
Yes.
I also visited Taraba State.
Yes.
We went up the Mambila Plateau.
Yes.
And there were questions of people who were being killed and even had to cross the border into Cameroon to get medical attention because they didn't have that right here in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
And I witnessed firsthand all of the things you're talking about. To get to the village that was attacked in Benue, for instance, you had to cross a lake which was called River Buruku, which is an outflow from the Benue River.
Areas I'm very familiar with. Yes.
You need a ferry to get across.
Yes.
And thankfully you're familiar with that.
Yes.
You need a ferry, and you need to get your vehicle on a ferry. And it takes a long time to do that. You cross over. And these ferries, they close at about 5, 6 in the evening. So throughout the night, these rural areas are cut off from the mainland.
Absolutely.
And the attacks happened in that area at
night.
at night.
Yes.
So a lot of the people who were attacked remained bleeding until morning before they could get access to the mainland and get access to hospitals and stuff. And I noticed only 1 police post in that area. So ungoverned spaces is a major challenge for us here in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
But responding to that is a challenge in and of itself because our police force, only 300,000 people strong, our military, 100,000 people strong, and deployed in several states.
Yeah.
So whether in training or in volume, we are on the back foot. How do we begin to evolve and meet up with the demand, the security demand in our country?
We are in an emergency situation, and it is regrettably that we have to militarize our environment and dominate it, both physically and spatially, for an enduring period of not less than 10 years, to be sure that those ungoverned spaces are well occupied and governed by military and law enforcement forces who will deter, discourage, and suppress any of these bandits who live within those areas. In fact, simple: find, fix, and destroy missions for now, because these are bandits that are resolute, ready to kill, like we have seen they are doing elaborately. And unless you seek them and destroy, you cannot discourage them to the extent that they have gotten with bloodletting.
Do we have what it takes?
We do. Nigeria has the human population.
So why are we falling behind?
We have the economy to be able to mobilize more men and material and arm them. But also, again, back to, regrettably, the issue we have. Governance, not just in Nigeria, but in most developed nations, is elitist. It is self-serving. Of the 300 and something number of policemen you have mentioned, that is the reality. I always argue in several forums, I'm sure my colleagues will be tired of me, that Nigeria is indeed over-policed. Because if you go by the UNDP ratio of 446 citizens to one policeman, and you walk it to the 300,000, additional to civil defense and other law enforcement agencies, you will come down to about a ratio of 360 Nigerian citizens to one policeman.
So are you suggesting that these other agencies should be collapsed into our police force?
No, far from it. Let me land my argument. The point is, even from the level of national infrastructure, by the example you gave of the Buruku community, there aren't the mobility corridors because security has to match development. When there is an emergency, what you expect, even if you have credible forces, you need infrastructure for response, to facilitate response. You don't have the roads. The ferry operates only in daytime. Do the police independently have assault boats to cross those water bodies? Are the police station in Buruku equipped enough for rapid deployment support? Does the police in Makurdi have that capability? So it is not just the number that makes a credible defense or security force. It is its capacity. It is its ability to communicate real time. It is its ability to respond credibly by force and also by mobility and communication
as well.
Adequately.
Right.
So this is where you have the disconnect.
Well, we'll have to take a break right now, but when we come back, you will tell us, General, how we can fix that disconnect. And beyond that, we'll also be looking at Nigeria's northeast and the resurgence of terrorism activities there. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
It's very outrageous. Or a civilian, a politician, or a senate, or a House of Rep member will be assigned a huge number of personnel, security personnel. Well, if you go to our various points, like police points, you will see about 2 or 3 policemen. But when you go to a House of Assembly member, you will see hundreds of policemen guiding. What are they guiding? Guiding the flowers and the domestic animals. While the strategic areas where these personnel are meant to be posted are scanty.
Do you have a ceremony or an occasion you want covered? If yes, contact us to give you unparalleled services on our TV, radio, via YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We also have an outdoor garden facility to cater for all your ceremonies, such as birthdays, reunions, receptions, etc. Our rates are modest and customer friendly. Please visit us at number 3, plot 833, Emmanuel Aguna Crescent, Jabi, Abuja, FCT, Nigeria. For more details, contact us on the following numbers: +234 80 80 87 4444, +234 90 555 62 +234 702 033 3444. AD4 TV Radio, reliable and credible. Learn on the go.
I'm not sure that the amount that are attached to private individuals can actually help in curbing the crime in the society. It's not about the people that are attached, though I know that we need more hands in the police and in the security agencies. But that alone is not the issue.
Welcome back to Exclusive Interview. I've been spending time with Brigadier General SALEH BALA, and we've been analyzing the security situation in Nigeria and how we can change that, how we can get on the front foot. Now, before we took that break, General, you were making a point that elitism may be our biggest problem, that a sizable amount of our security forces are attached to VIPs.
Absolutely. Unless collectively as urban elites particularly, we agree that security is for the citizens, security is for all in a democratic space, and not essentially that security is personalized, especially instruments of state, we can only continue to beg the question. Because even if you have a 3 million standing police force, it will still be adapted to serving the interests of individuals.
Mm-hmm. So how do we change that mindset to, rather than regime preservation, to people preservation?
It's neither here nor there, but it's all about leadership. Because the past 3 generations of Inspector Generals of Police have always come on board with the foremost mantra to withdraw personal police security guards.
Why has it been so difficult? And you were a special advisor to a former Minister of Interior.
Absolutely.
So you've been able to observe this firsthand.
Very much.
Why has it been so difficult to withdraw this and then deploy the police where they're much needed?
The authority and conspiracy of the elites in government. Absolutely. Because take it from all the 3 arms of government. They have a way of arm twisting executives through either budgetary lack of approvals, or challenge of tenure, or whatever kind of arm twisting that the particular arm of government has capacity to against the executive of the defense and security force. So this is what goes. And even within the security forces themselves, they do not help matters. Because we still have a very, very colonial mentality. You have an average officer having a stream of drivers, orderlies, bodyguards. And don't you forget that amongst the police, this 300,000 number are typists, drivers, barbers, tailors, cooks. So how many men are actually out there for operations? And even those number of men you have out there for operations, how are they trained? How are they capacitated? What is the service quality of their rifles? Do they even know the law? If you are living in Gwarimpa and there is a threat in your house right there in Gwarimpa, like I've had an experience, you call the police and they don't have a vehicle to come. So these are the critical questions we as elites have to understand. That today the biggest threat is more or less against us. Because if Abuja is the federal capital, political capital of Nigeria, and Kaduna is the de facto military headquarters of Nigeria, and you cannot transverse the expressway between these 2 critical strategic cities, then we should be asking ourselves questions. What we should let go. Is it to our personal security or to the overarching security of the state?
There have been calls for removal of service chiefs. Personally, I think that would be a cosmetic solution, because we probably need to dig deeper. What are the fundamental changes that we need to make in order to make the Nigerian security system more effective?
It's as simple as the reality that the military or the security agencies are an extension of the strategic political leadership of Nigeria. It is left for the political leadership of Nigeria to rise to its responsibilities and effectively do what is constitutionally right. You can change the service chiefs. It depends on the quality of persons you are going to select, because very much there are political considerations in who is appointed what.
But even if you were to select the best person,
yes,
if the system is not working right,
absolutely,
there is only so much that the right person can do in that particular position.
Absolutely. We have been canvassing for a security sector reforms for Nigeria. We have discovered that we are even beyond security sector reforms. We are now in a stage where we need an absolute security sector transformation because of the new kind of threats and local and international conditions that we have.
I even think it's beyond that. I think it's more of a criminal justice system reform. The police being your first point of contact with the criminal justice system, all the way to the prisons.
The security sector, in the new paradigm of its definition, focuses on the defense and security, and of course the criminal justice system, which is a tripod of the police, the correctionals, and the judiciary.
That's right.
And because of time limit, all these three critical institutions of the criminal justice system itself have issues, have serious issues. This is why the whole of the sector requires a transformation, not just reforms. It is very, very important that, and security sector reforms is a political decision. So unless the political class decide and accept that we need to transform in order to bring sanity and effectiveness to security, which is the most critical political element that we need for peace and security in Nigeria, we simply will be begging the question.
Well, political will, I think you mentioned that earlier. Let's go to the Northeast.
Yes.
Again, this is something we've been battling for the period of 12 years now. We're almost started in 2009, 11 years. Or it must have been bubbling much longer than that. But 2009 was when we had the first major attack. 2020, we're still, we're nowhere nearer a solution than we were maybe 4 or 5 years ago. In fact, what we're experiencing now is a resurgence of Boko Haram. In fact, right now, we understand that it has broken into two factions. There's the Shakal faction, and then there's ISWAP, which is being led by the son of the former leader, of the slain leader, original leader of Boko Haram. So, what are we getting wrong here? What are we missing? Nigerians are getting tired. They've heard time and time again, their days are numbered. We will go out and get them. We will resettle those who have been dislodged. And it's just not happened. And despair is beginning to set in.
It's quite a huge question to answer, but I'll try my best to make it as simple as I can find it. An insurgency is a fight out of political will. It's ideological. The military instrument of state is only applied where you have extreme violence, but mainly to allow for that space or corridor of stability to apply the political instrument, which is more long-term and enduring. And for as much as you don't apply the political instrument, which very much speaks to negotiation, to facilitation of dialogue, facilitation of development, you can never deal with a ideological war.
So this is the mistake that we're making
This
here
is
in
the
Nigeria.
huge mistake,
That we
because
assume that we send
Yeah.
the military in there and
Yeah.
our problems are solved.
Yeah.
But that is not it.
That's
the
not
military
it.
only comes in to give you an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So
And
that the political actors can do what they need to do.
in the military, we call counterinsurgencies the long war. You can never ever establish a timeline of which the critical objective, the end state, can be met. The military end state is always to create that enabling environment for the political solution to be applied. But this is an interview to which I am the guest. But if I ask you a rhetorical question, what is the political solution as a strategy being enunciated by the three regimes so far, from Yar'Adua to Goodluck Jonathan and even Buhari?
Muhammadu Buhari.
We keep on pandering to what even the Western nations say, that they do not negotiate with terrorists. But just last week, I need to put this, just this week, the United States signed up to a peace resolution with the Taliban. That should tell you something. It is
So-
about concessioning.
General, I would love to speak so much more on this because
Yes.
I think we've just scratched the surface. But just as we round up, what are your thoughts? What's your advice to the Nigerian government on what to do with our security situation?
We need a total security sector transformation that is led by a strong political will and clear strategic political objectives.
Simply put.
Simply put, if there isn't a credible, clear vision political leadership in all sectors, we only can begin to, we continually will beg the question, because we as professionals can only give professional advice that we are trained to. It is left for the politicians to apply the solutions
The fundamental solutions.
the way they should.
Thank you very much, General. It's been such a pleasure
Thank
speaking
you.
to you
Thank
on
you very
this
much.
subject.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back. An interesting conversation we had there with Brigadier General Saleh Bala. We're talking about, well, some of the things that we can do to help keep Nigeria safe. And here are some of the things that he pointed out. Now, dealing with the issue of elitism is important in order to improve our security situation right here in Nigeria. Now, that means that we have to avoid personalizing security in such a way that our security apparatus can focus on the people and not on personalities. That means that we need to have fewer men guarding VIPs and more people out there making sure that communities and societies are kept safe and sound. There is also a need to have political will on the part of the executive to avoid being arm-twisted. Now, in Nigeria, there are influences from vested interests, but the executive has to stand resolute and make sure that whatever it is that it comes up with, whatever policy improvements that it has come up with, that it will be able to see it through. Now, the final thing we also need to do is to improve the capacity and quality of service on the part of security agencies. Now, it's one thing to improve the number of policemen and soldiers and also members of the Civil Defense Corps. It's another thing to make sure that these men have the adequate training in different areas that they need to make sure that Nigeria is a society that is free from crime. And that's it for today's edition of Exclusive Interview. Join us again next time for more in-depth analysis and conversation. Until then, thank you for stopping by.